Hi, Coal Colts. We're going to spend a couple of days in these mini lessons talking about the setting. The setting is where a story takes place or where the story happens. And the illustrators and authors help you to figure that out using words and pictures. So today we're going to talk about how the illustrations and the words show where a story happened. And I don't have this book at home, but I thought this was a pretty easy example. If you look at the cover of the book Over on a Mountain and you think about the title of that book, Over on a Mountain, you know that that story takes place in the mountains. And you can also tell that by looking at this picture. You can see the mountains, and you can see some animals that live in the mountains. And that little bit right there is a valley where people live, just like we live sort of in the valley of the mountains. Um, so another example of that is How to Heal a Broken Wing. And if you think about the story How to Heal a Broken Wing, we can see in some of the illustrations where this story takes place. And this one, with this illustration, gives us a gigantic clue on where this story takes place. So what I see as a reader is I see really, really tall buildings, and so many of them all really close together. And then down here, I see little roads with lots of cars and people. Um, and then the illustration here shows me that this story takes place in a city. And if I read the words, it says, high above the city, no one heard the soft thud of feathers against glass. The author tells you that it takes place in a city, but you didn't even need to read that. You could look at the pictures and know right away that it takes place in a city. So I want to look at one more book, the book Down the Road. You can hear the whole story if you scroll up just a little bit and listen to that story down the road. In this story, the author gives us lots of clues about where the story takes place. So let's take a quick look through this book and see if you can figure out where the story takes place. Well, I want to go back to this page because this is the title page. And on the title page, I'm going to zoom out a bit, you can see that the setting of this story has lots of green grass and fields and lots of trees, and the houses aren't particularly close together. You see a house here, which is kind of far away from the house here, and a long road, which is a dirt road. That's a pretty good clue on where this story takes place. So a place that has lots of green and lots of fields and the houses aren't close together is what kind of setting? Yeah, if you were thinking that maybe this story takes place in the country or in a rural area, you're probably right. And there are other clues in this story. Here it says, sometimes Hetty walked with Mama down the dusty road. And up here, I should have read this first, in front of the house was the dusty road that ran through a field, up over a hill, and out of sight. So if you think about a long, dusty road that runs through a field, up and over a hill and out of sight, that also is a clue that they live in the country or in a rural area. And then sometimes Hetty walked with Mama down the dusty roads. Sometimes she walked with Papa, but Hetty had never, ever been allowed down the dusty road all by herself. There are lots of other clues. I love this. When Hetty gets to the store, the name of the store is Mr. Birdie's Emporium and Dry Goods. And if you look, that doesn't look anything like the kind of stores that we shop in now, right? It's very small, very little in the way of groceries and things that you could use in the house, not too many people. So that tells us not only does this story take place in a rural area, but it probably took place in the past. We don't have too many of these dry goods stores left here in Colorado or in this country at all. So not only does it take place in the country, but in the country in the past. So I want you, when you do your reading, today on your own. I want you to think about how the illustrations and the words show where a story happens, and try to figure out if you can, if you know where the setting of that story takes place. Thanks.